Hello everybody, welcome to my stream for Monday night. My name is Steve, some people call me Sven. Before I get started, I just want to make a quick announcement about tonight's broadcast. You may hear a little bit of extra background noise tonight. I have no air conditioning. It's still kind of warm here, and I didn't feel like closing the windows and turning this room into an awful sweatbox. Because I've just sort of cleaned up in here a little bit, so I didn't want it to get all stinky. So apologies if you hear wind chimes, or dogs barking, or people yelling because it's Monday Night Football, or for other reasons as well sometimes. Hello to chat, how you guys doing tonight? Anyway, for those of you who don't know, this is an extra live stream. I stream for Children's Hospital Los Angeles. If you don't know what Extra Life is, we are a gaming charity. We raise money for children's hospitals all across of the US and Canada. I'm doing a little special thing involving DotA because it's my favorite game, where I try to play through all 110 heroes in the game and win a match with them. I'm up to the P's now, so I have a little bit farther to go. And what I'm doing is I'm doing VODs because I am not very good at playing and talking at the same time. So you guys are gonna get to watch this game with me and see all the mistakes that I made. You can see from the replay I didn't do well. I did okay. I went 2, 3, and 15. Let's just go ahead and jump right in. I'm playing Pheonix this game. He's a support hero. Yeah, he's a support hero. He's actually kind of interesting because he has a sort of unique mechanic in Dota where his spells don't just cost him mana, they also cost him a little bit of his health. So if you're not very careful with him, you can have some real serious problems with positioning and getting caught out and just getting wrecked and killed super easily. Sorry about that, I got distracted for a second. Sometimes it happens when I'm streaming. Anyway, yeah, enemy picked first. This was another one of those Dota matches where everybody waited for late to pick, but since I was playing a support hero, it kind of didn't matter if I picked early, so I picked kind of early. Enemy team picked up a Pudge and a Bristleback. Not too concerning for me as Pheonix. It just means I have to buy more wards because of Pudge. I'll talk more about that later. While we're waiting for, well, game's about to start, but we'll go over my skills really quick. Oh, I forgot to change the camera to the right mode.
Oxygen-rich atmosphere, giant testicle monsters. We'll be fine. Let's party!
Oh yeah, there's a Rick and Morty announcer pack. So if you're not familiar with the Adult Swim, I think, show, you won't know anything about what the announcers are saying. It's fun. Oh yeah, skills for Pheonix. She's a little weird. I call her she just because she's a weird bird creature that doesn't actually have a... You can't really tell what gender she is because, you know, she's like a big giant fiery bird. But anyway, her skills. Her second skill is the one I picked up first. It's Fire Spirits. So you take a little bit of health off, and then you get to Croc. At level 1, it's 3 attacks. At level 2, it's 4 attacks, and it stays at 4 for the rest of the levels of the skill. And the way it works is it does damage over time in a fairly large AoE. When it's leveled up, it's actually a pretty big nuke, as long as they can't debuff it really quickly. So yeah, I went off lane with the Ogre Magi here. It was kind of weird. We ended up picking a bunch of heroes that can be support heroes. Like all 5 of the heroes on our team could technically be run as support heroes, although Leshrac is almost always run as a carry now. Oops. Alright, so yeah, you can see me here. I'm just sort of harassing the Venomancer a little bit so that the Ogre Magi can get farm. Because of the heroes that we picked, he is the support hero that can do the most work as a carry. Like, he has the most damage potential. Late game, Pheonix doesn't do much. Like, she can nuke people down, and she's got some really interesting positioning stuff, and her spells are super unique. You'll start to see once I start to pop them off later, but I just picked up Icarus Dive, which is a really interesting spell. The way it works is you cast it on a point, and Pheonix will fly to that point, ignoring all terrain and trees, and then fly back to where she started from. You can also cancel it at any point in there, so you can really use it to cover a lot of ground quickly and get sort of in front of people and cause lots of trouble for them. So it's a really useful spell for positioning. It also does a little bit of AoE damage to anything that you pass through while you are flying. You can also attack while you're doing it, and you can also, I think, cast some spells and items while you're doing it. So Ogre Magi is just harassing the Veno here, and we're not going to get much out of that. Her third skill, Sunray, is sort of her weakest one. You'll see it late game. She just casts a really big ray that does damage to enemies, but also heals allies. So, you know, that's kind of useful for obvious reasons. There you see Fire Spirits going out and me missing with them. They're kind of a skill shot, meaning they won't track a target. They just go to a point on the ground that you hit. So early in the game, I sort of missed a lot, and then later in the game, I started to do a little bit better. Her ultimate ability, Supernova, is a really interesting spell. It's one of the few spells in the game that actually lets you come back to life. I think the only other one would be Wraith King's ultimate ability, which is not a spell you cast. It's just if you die, you come back to life, and enemies that are standing near the place where you died will be slowed for 2 or 3 seconds, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that spell, but this spell is a little different. You actually cast Supernova, and the way it works is it transforms you into a sun, a little miniature sun that can't move at all, that does damage in an AoE around you, a really massive AoE around you, and also will slow any enemies in that AoE where they're taking tick damage. But then after a countdown of 6 seconds, you come back to life with full health and full mana, and with all of your cooldowns reset. Also, you explode when you do that. There's Icarus Dive. Yeah, so I kind of messed up there. If I had cancelled it at the end of my arc, I probably could have killed Venomancer. That was actually a pretty big mistake there. But as I was saying, Supernova, at the end of the 6 seconds, you explode and you stun anybody that's standing around you. So she's actually a really interesting hero because all of her spells, like I said earlier, cost her health. So if you cast a ton of spells in a team fight and then you get really low on health and you start to think you're going to die, you just pop your Supernova, and as long as you're not the center of attention and the enemy doesn't manage to cancel your Supernova, you not only deal a bunch of damage and slow everybody, but you also come back to life with full health and mana and stun everybody. So if you can get a full duration Supernova off, it's a really powerful spell. The only problem is if you get hit... okay, it scales up now. It used to be all just the same. If enemies attack you while you're in Supernova, they can cancel it, and it's at level 1 it's 5, at level 2 it's 8, and at level 3 it's 11 attacks to just kill you then and there. So again, you have to be careful about positioning and how much health you have left, and where all the enemies are positioned. And also, you don't necessarily want to pop it off when you're alone, because then other enemies can show up and they just hit you 5 times and you're dead. You also don't want to pop it off under a tower, because the tower hits count. You also don't want to pop it off near a creep wave, because if there's 4 creeps in the creep wave and 1 hero, they all only have to hit you once at level 1, and then you're just dead. So that's basically how Pheonix works. We'll start to see how she works a little bit more later. Ogre Magi, he's just a super tanky hero who also has lots of spells, but weirdly is designed without a ton of intelligence gain over the course of a game. So he's got mana problems throughout the entire game, but all of his spells are really good. He's got a single target nuke, he's got a single target slow. And here goes Icarus Dive again. Probably a little bit too aggressive here with this. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to back now. Unless I still have some regen, so I think I just back off and use up my tangos to regen up. Yeah, he's got his single target nuke, which actually I probably would have gotten 2 levels in Fire Blast early. It does so much damage, and I usually wait to skill up Bloodlust until the very last. But you know, it's his build and he's doing okay. So yeah, he's got a single target slow that will affect. It can sometimes bounce to other enemies that are nearby the person that he casts it on. He's got a buff that gives him attack speed and movement speed. You can also cast it on allies, which makes him really useful as a support hero. And then he's got his ultimate multicast, which basically gives him a chance to cast his spells multiple times every time he casts one. Which, if that doesn't make sense, if say he casts Ignite on this creep, if his ultimate's up, he's got a percentage chance to also cast it on the catapult and also cast it on anybody else standing around. Up to 3 if he gets an Aghanim Scepter, I think 4 times. But the really nice thing about him is he has 8 armor already. He starts with just 8 armor, which is a lot in the early game. So he's really tanky, and he can do a lot of damage with his spells if you level him correctly. So yeah, this is kind of how top lane went. We just sort of pushed a lot. Let's take a look at some of the other lanes and the other heroes in the game. We've got a Rubik here. Looks like he's covering for the Leshrac, who's going up top. Or was going for the rune or something. I'm not sure what this Leshrac is doing. Anyway, there's a Rubik and a Leshrac mid. These guys are kind of interesting. They got a lot of play in TI5, which is the biggest, it's the biggest Dota tournament that there ever was so far, and it's probably going to be the biggest one until TI6. To be honest, I doubt we'll see a bigger tournament. Okay, so what's Leshrac doing? Anyway, like I was saying, Leshrac and Rubik here both got a lot of play in that tournament. They're really don't think we're gonna see anything happen from that charge from Spirit Breaker. Yeah, that's just a random charge. Sometimes they'll do that. Oh, but Rubik stole charge, so that's the interesting thing about Rubik is his ultimate lets him steal spells from his opponents. So he just stole Charge of Darkness from Spirit Breaker here, which is actually a really good spell to steal because it lets you charge to any enemy on the map at maximum movement speed. Oh, this is dead Rubik. Yeah. So that's what Pudge does. He hooks people to him, and his hook does a lot of damage, and then he turns on his Rot spell, which does damage to anybody standing in an AoE around him, but also himself. So if we'd had a ward up here, we would have seen that he was here. Yeah, and he's got a haste rune, so he's going to run top. But we have a ward here, so I don't think the ward saw him there, but we definitely see him now. Like, he thinks he's hidden now, but we totally see where he is. Because of this ward that I put down. As a support, that's like one of your main jobs in Dota 2 is warding. I think I talk about it every time I go up against a Pudge in one of these matches. But they basically it's a 75 gold item that basically hard counters this carry, because he really relies on getting. As you can see, he's squishy. He's really squishy. So if he doesn't get his hook off, if he can't hook somebody to a position where no one else can attack him, he just kind of dies in a team fight early game if he doesn't have the right items. So if you can see where he is, he's basically countered. And that's kind of what we did. We just kept wards up mostly throughout the entire match. Up in here we see Charge of Darkness coming on to the Spirit Breaker, and he just gets taken out. So that's actually a really funny use of Rubik. Oh, that's a shame. Rot is not the spell you want to steal from a Pudge. So he just used his ultimate again, and he picked up Rot here, which is a Pudge spell. This guy. It's his second spell. Basically, he can turn it on and off whenever he wants to. It doesn't cost him any mana. Oh, another mistook. It doesn't cost him any mana, it costs him health. Basically, it does damage to Pudge, but anybody standing around him will take damage also. So the way it works is you hook somebody to you, you turn on Rot, and then you just hope that you can right-click them more than they right-click you. Here I was going to go and put down a ward. I ran into Pudge. We both were kind of probably not paying attention because you saw the reaction time there. It was like I was here, I saw him, we walked basically shoulder to shoulder for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and then we both reacted. He threw his hook out, and I used my Icarus dive to run away. It was actually not very well played by either one of us, but it's actually pretty funny, if you ask me. So yeah, at this point we kind of grouped up bottom. We see Chronosphere coming off from Faceless Void on my team. I haven't really talked about all the heroes this game because there's actually been a fair amount of action so far. Another Charge of Darkness coming in, but if you charge into 5 heroes, you're really not going to get much out of it. Alright, just really quickly, I'm going to go over heroes as fast as I can, just so that like, you guys will understand what these guys are all about. Leshrac, he's basically a pushing hero. He's got lots of nukes. He's got a AoE stun that's really hard to land. So basically the way he works is you level up your Lightning Storm, which is your AoE nuke, you take out creep waves, and then you just destroy towers. This spell here also has a slow attached to it. And then you can also just turn your ultimate ability on and stand next to people. You're seeing there those pulses that were sort of wrecking old Pudge here. That's Leshrac's ultimate ability. That's basically what he does. He slows people so they can't run away, and he turns on his ultimate ability so that just by standing next to them they take a ton of damage. We talked about Ogre Magi. Rubik, he's got a stun, he's got a AoE nuke. Oh god, look at all this fighting. Yeah. So that was them trying to 2v4 and just losing. This game is a little bit one-sided. It was fun to play. I'm not sure how much fun it is to watch. But that's that. That said, Rubik is a really interesting guy because he can steal spells. So he's a lot of fun to play because you sort of wait to pick him last and hope your enemy and if your enemy team picks up a bunch of spellcasters, you pick Rubik, and then all of a sudden all of them are countered because you just steal their spell and use it against them. His nuke and his stun are actually some of the better ones in the game. So he's actually a really strong hero as long as the enemy team, like I said, has good spells, because his ultimate is worthless if the enemy team doesn't have good spells. So against heroes, I don't know, like Drow Ranger, you can't really steal very good stuff from her. She's just got a slow and a silence that actually neither one of them does any damage really, or can't really lock down people. So like against her you wouldn't pick a Rubik, but against these guys, about the only guy who doesn't have spells that he can use is probably Bristleback over here. We see the Viper going in on the Rubik there. I don't think he's going to get anything. He's just going to have to run away because we all show up again. He's a hero who's just sort of is designed to take last hits and harass heroes in lane early game, and then swing that advantage that he gets from doing that into a late game pushing strategy. basically that means he's really good at hitting creeps and heroes early, and then he kind of falls off unless he gets items. At which point he can either be really good at taking buildings, or not be good at much of anything. At this point, we're far enough ahead that he doesn't have the right items that he needs to be really strong against us, so he's not really going to do much damage. He's got a poison attack added onto his regular attack. He's got a passive toxin ability that does bonus damage to people. He's got a corrosive skin ability, which, oh gosh, fighting is happening. There we see a supernova coming from me. You can see these guys getting slowed. Oh, and there, I caught 3 with a stun. That was actually probably my best supernova of the game. You can see we're just going to clean up here. That's a full team wipe. So, yeah, that was kind of the point where we really swung the game. It could still come back at this point. I think. Let's take a look at some graphs here. Oops, wrong one. Well, see, the experience graph sort of tells a story. So does the net worth graph. This game was kind of a stomp. We kind of just did really well early in all 3 lanes, and then they just never really were able to come back super well. It lasts for a while longer because they have good high ground defense. I think that's how this one went. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, this was kind of a stomp. But like I was saying about Viper, he doesn't have stuns. He just has sort of slows. So like early game slows are really powerful because they let you chase people down and right click them to death. But once you're into the mid to late game, the early mid game like we are now, slows don't really do as much because you're looking to team fight more. So like if they're already standing next to you right clicking you, a slow doesn't really do much for you. Like it lets you run away a little bit, but if it's a single target slow like Nether Toxin, or wait, no. No, yeah, Nether Toxin is the slow. It doesn't really do much because you're slowing one target, but then there's 3 more targets who are still really fast and can chase you down. And he goes down again. That was the tick damage from Ogre Magi's second skill here. Ignite does damage over time. We haven't talked about Juggernaut much. He's an interesting sort of pushing carry. He's kind of a semi-carry who can push really strongly. That's because of his healing ward, his second spell. He just casts this little player-controlled unit down on the ground, and it heals anybody standing in an AoE around it. So you can use that to split push because it'll also heal the creeps a little bit. Other than that, he's got Blade Fury, which lets him do damage in an AoE around him while being immune to magical damage. So it's actually a really useful spell for escaping stuff. He's got a really powerful crit, critical strike. It's actually one of the best ones in the game. Like the only one that's better, I think, is Phantom Assassins, and that's her ultimate is a passive crit. So it's a really good crit. Like you'll see him one-shot people when we get into the late game and we start team fighting a little bit more. His ultimate ability is Omni Slash. It lets him sort of teleport between all the enemies in an AoE around him and do a bunch of auto attacks to them. So that's why his crit strike is really good. If you have it really high, if you have a lot of points in his critical strike and you're Omni Slashing people, you'll do a ton of damage because every time you hit them you get a chance to crock his pretty massive critical strike. You've got Bristleback here, who's kind of a weird hero. He takes... See, this guy is not getting... I would get more points into... Well... I would have gotten a couple more points into Bristleback. It's because it reduces so much of the damage that you take. The way Bristleback, the hero, works is his third skill, which is also his name, Bristleback, reduces the amount of damage he takes from attacks behind him. So so you do more damage when you're standing in front of him, basically. And the way his first spell is a slow that sort of roots people to the ground. So you can root somebody to the ground, sort of turn around so that they do way less damage to you, and then you use your second spell, Quill Spray, to deal a bunch of damage back to them. And the thing is, like, as the more you cast these two spells, the more your ultimate gives you bonus damage, because that's the way that works. Is you gain stacks every time you use one of your other spells, and then that gives you bonus damage to your regular attacks, which is, oh gosh. So you kind of see it come into effect here. Although, oh, Rubik almost got away. Dang, look how far Rubik flew. That's actually really funny. Yeah, so they're picking up some pickoffs here when their roaming is 3. But the problem is we've already taken a bunch of towers. We've taken the 2 outer towers in mid, we've taken 1 outer tower up top, and they haven't taken... Oh, they took the bottom tower. But if we take a look at the graph, yeah, we're still way ahead on the Radiant team. It's not looking good. Not looking good for Dire at all. Is that everybody? I haven't really talked about Spirit Breaker. The interesting thing about Spirit Breaker is we kind of talked about it a little bit in passing, is his Charge of Darkness spell, which will let him target any enemy on the map. As long as there's vision of it, you can target it. And it lets you charge at max movement speed and ignore trees and terrain. Yeah, so he's just getting stun locked here, and now he's using Charge of Darkness to run away, which is one of the things you can do with it. You see what happened to those ancients there? Any unit that he passes through gets stunned and knocked back. So it's actually a really strong spell for initiating, because what you can do is you can charge onto the enemy's back lines, and then anybody that you run through... Oh, another supernova for me, and we get the stun. So that actually worked out really well, because it's a 3 for 1. 4 for 1. Wow, this game is kind of hard to talk about because it's going so fast at this point that I'm not even through the heroes and we've already taken a bunch of outer towers. Anyway, he's got Charge of Darkness. He can run to anywhere on the map and stun people that he runs through and do a bunch of damage when he hits somebody. He's got Empowering Haste, which gives his allies bonus attack. It's not attack speed. It gives his allies bonus movement speed based on his movement speed. So it lets everybody in an AoE around him on his team run a little bit faster, based off of how much movement speed he has. So it's not the strongest aura in the game. Like, he's picked up one. You can see he's picked up 1 point in it, and he's sort of prioritized all his other spells, and that's probably a good call, because it's really not the best aura in the game, because movement speed, it's valuable, but like you want damage and attack speed, because your team is going to buy their move speed. Like, if they need it, they're going to buy it as an item, and they're not going to rely on you for movement speed buffs. Looks like Rubik's going to get caught out here. Yeah, they can get pickoffs still when they're like 3v1 like that, but anytime there's more than one of us alone, they basically can't kill us. So looks like they're feeling strong here. They're going to try to go on Faceless Void here. His Chronosphere is up, though. He could have just chronoed all 3 of them, and then we would have collapsed on him, because I was up here. Well, we probably wouldn't have killed all 3 of them if he'd chronoed them, but we would have got some of them. Greater Bash is Spirit Breaker's 4th skill. It basically gives him a chance to stun, to mini stun every time he attacks. It's one of the lower chances to bash, though. It's 17%, which is not a great percent chance to bash. It also doesn't stack with other items that do that effect, so it's good, but it's not the best. It will croc on the end of Charge of Darkness, and it crocs on its ultimate, which is kind of a weird ability. It will It sort of lets you teleport to an enemy that's nearby or that's in that AoE right there, and it'll stun them and do a bunch of damage. Not a ton of damage though. It's not a super powerful nuke. He's more of an initiating hero than he is a takedown hero. Like he can start fights, but he kind of needs help unless it's really early in the game to finish off kills. Is that everybody? I haven't really talked about Faceless Void much this game. He's a hard carry. Basically, what you need to know about him is he has Chronosphere. Like within this AoE that you're seeing there, every time I sort of mouse over it, within that he can cast a Chronosphere, which is a big bubble of sort of purple black space weirdness that will freeze anything that walks into it that's not Faceless Void. So the thing is, it'll freeze your allies too, so you got to be careful when you throw it down. But nobody can move in there, and he gets bonus attack speed and movement speed in there, so he can really shut down an enemy team. You'll see him use it later. He's used it a couple times already. Oh, see, they took a tower. That's interesting. In addition to that, he's got a little bit of a teleport ability with time walk here. You'll see him use it. It's a single point. He can click up one on the ground and sort of teleport to it. It's not as instant as like a blink or something, but it's fast enough to get the job done. He's got backtrack, which gives him a chance to sort of go back in time a little bit and undo some damage that was done to him. And he's got time lock, which is a bash chance, sort of like Greater Bash on Spirit Breaker. But you see, Greater Bash is 17%, and time lock is 25% chance to bash. So he's got a much better chance of actually stunning somebody. So there's Chronosphere, catches it on 2. And you see what's really good about it in our lineup this game is that Leshrac can just sort of stand next to the bubble and turn on his ultimate ability, and everybody inside the bubble will take a ton of damage from Leshrac's ultimate. Also, I'm a ranged hero, and so is Rubik, so we can just stand outside the bubble and cast stuff into it without getting stuck in it over and over. And you'll kind of see that happen later. I remember that happening a couple times as we tried to siege high ground, where we caught everybody in a Chronosphere and we just nuked them all down. So that's another 5 for like 1 or 2. I think they got Rubik at the start of that, and all 5 of them died down there. So it's at this point I felt like we'd won it already, and it was sort of just a matter of time. As long as we didn't screw up and throw the game, we were gonna come out ahead.
Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under attack. You know, Morty, it sometimes feels like they don't even care.
Yep. So there you see me using my third spell to no effect at all, because there was nobody standing in its beam and I couldn't turn it fast enough to actually help much. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I didn't think that I caught him there with that, and I actually did, with a little bit of burn damage from Icarus Dive, but I guess it was nowhere near enough to actually take him out. I was kind of hoping, but that's not how it worked out. Let me talk about my items. I've got some pretty basic support items here. I got a wand. Oh, Charge of Darkness being used against the Spirit Breaker. That's a really satisfying thing to see as a Dota player, because Spirit Breaker can be a really annoying hero if you don't if you don't mess him up correctly. So, yeah. Yeah, at this point, we're really strong, and there's not a lot that they can do. Let's take a look at this fight recap here. You'll see, like we got 1,000 gold out of that, and they lost almost 700 gold. 3 of them died. They did some damage, but not anywhere near enough. Oh, Chronosphere on 1. Chronosphere on Bristleback. So, yeah, that's... At this point in the game, we can kind of get away with a little bit of sloppy play like that, just for one... Like, this late in the game, normally, at 30 minutes, you would want to save your ultimate as a Faithless Void, you know, and hope that you would get, you know, at least 2 heroes with it. But, you know, we're kind of having such an easy time killing them that it's kind of okay that he did that. Like, you can use it early game to get a single kill, because early game single kills are so valuable. This late in the game, though, you kind of would want to save it, but it's fine. So, like items, yeah, a wand. You know, it gives you +4 to all your attributes. That's these abilities, these stats here. So it's actually it's a fairly strong stat item. It also gives you the ability to give yourself a little bit of burst heal and burst mana regen. Like, the way it works is every time a spell is cast in an AoE around you, you get a charge. This one has 9 charges on it, and each one of those heals you for 15 points of damage and 15 mana. So when it's fully leveled up, like it will be soon, so that's basically just a zoning. Oh yeah, at this point, Pudge quit. Or he might come back, I don't remember. Oh, I died there. Okay. So, Viper has the item Shadow Blade that lets him turn invisible. Also, every time he attacks somebody while he's invisible, it'll break the invisibility, but it gives him a bunch of bonus damage. It gives him a pretty big crit. It's, let me see here. It gives him 175 bonus damage, which is a fair amount. It's a fairly big nuke in addition to the amount of damage he does. See Spirit Breaker going in on 2. Yeah. Yeah, they can't 1v2 like that. They just can't. That's the problem that they have now. Like, there was a time in this game where they could 1v2, and this is not it. Whoops. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have time to talk about items very much. Let's see, Leshrek's got a Bloodstone. It's a really interesting item. It also gets charges, but instead of from spells being cast, Bloodstone gets charges from heroes dying nearby. So you can see he's got 30 charges here, and what every one of those charges does is it gives him an increase to the mana regeneration and the hit points regeneration that he gives. So with this many charges on it, he gets his mana back fast enough that when he turns on his ultimate, it barely takes any mana off because he's regenning it so fast. It's a really strong item to pick up on Leshrek. It's super popular right now. He's got a Yule's Scepter, which gives him, let's see, well, it gives him +40 movement speed, in addition to the +50 movement speed that he gets from his boots, which makes him basically run really fast, which is useful because you can see you can't really see how it's useful here because the enemy was stun locked for so long that they couldn't run away. But let's say that those 2 guys over here had tried to run away from him. Well, he's got 50 movement speed from his boots and 40 movement speed from the Yule Scepter. They can't get away from him. He just runs after them, and they can't get out of the AoE of his ultimate ability, and they just sort of get nuked down. We see a support fighting against two carries and kind of doing just fine. Well, he did die, so I guess not just fine. Well, Spirit Breaker finally figured out how to cancel his charge. That's good for him. I don't think it's going to save him, though. Yeah. I've been on the other side of games like this, so I feel kind of good not to be on the other side for once. What was I saying? What else does the Shrek guy have? He's got a Glimmer Cape, which will let him make himself or an ally invisible for a couple seconds. It also gives them a buff to magic resistance. He's got Power Treads. They let him run faster, and they let him attack faster. Alright, so we're seeing a 2v1 happen here. The Shrek turns on his ultimate. He Yule Scepters the Viper. Oh my gosh, they actually killed the Shrek in a 2v1, but you can see it was a close thing. That's the other thing Yule Scepter does. You saw that tornado that got conjured up that sort of threw Viper up into the air. That's it. That's the active of the Yule Scepter. What items do I have? Well, I'm working on a pipe of insight, which will give my team and creeps around me a bonus to our magical defense. I've got a Urn of Shadows. It's a little bit like the Bloodstone that we talked about earlier, where it gains a charge every time an enemy hero dies around me. But instead of giving me mana regen based on that, it lets me heal or do damage. Oh gosh, lots of stuff happening. Let's see, Pudge Hook come out. Okay, Supernova. I think this might be one that they kill. Nope, I survived there. Alright. Yeah, that was a little hard to follow. I think I was... yeah. That's a 3v2. It's not the worst thing ever. Or a 3-for-2 trade. It's not the worst thing ever when we've already taken one of their outer barracks and we're just about to take another one. My items, let's see. I've got some wards on me, which is always nice to have. Vision is very important in Dota 2, just because the map is big. Other similar games, the maps tend to be a little bit smaller, so there's less room to hide. And you know, the towers in the other game, in sort of other games of this type, will give you almost enough vision to get you by. So there's sort of no need to have an item like wards in those games. Well, not exactly the same as observer wards, which give a pretty massive AoE. Let me see if I can find one on the map. So yeah, this guy, you can see he gives us all of this vision. And that's a lot compared to the size of the map. It's giving extra vision here because it's on a high ground spot, but even a regular ward gives you a lot of vision. And on a map this big, that's really important. And I already talked about how important they are when I talked about Pudge earlier, but it's important to remember in Dota, wards are super important. Alright, I'm not going to talk about wards again tonight, I promise. Well, I shouldn't make promises I can't keep, because it might come up in one of the other games. But I'm not going to talk about it again this game. Let's put it that way. This game that's pretty clearly about to end. Anyway. Oh, the Shrek picked up an Octarine Core. It's a new item to Dota 2. Oh gosh, he's getting gone on by 3, or 1. 3, yeah, 3. Now they show up, but the problem is he has an Octarine Core, which, in addition to some relatively weak stat gain, it gives him a few stats and a little bit of health and a little bit of mana, but not really a lot. What it really gives him that's important for Leshrac especially is it gives him 100% extra mana regeneration, so that, again, when he turns on his ultimate, he doesn't spend that much mana. Really useful item on Leshrac. It's not super popular on other heroes. So, the mistake there was, well, we won the game, so I'm not going to talk about any more mistakes. So yeah, that was my Pheonix game. A one and done on this, on the A to Z challenge, which is a refreshing change of pace. It's been a while since I had a one and done. Actually, well, Phantom Assassin was a one and done, but I didn't get the, I couldn't capture the replay for some weird reason, so I didn't actually talk about it. Anyway, yeah, that's the Pheonix game. I'm going to take a 5-minute break and be back. Thank you guys for watching.